Hello, and welcome back to Lacrim Noir. Before we begin, feel free to leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I always enjoy reading them. If you're drawn to dark haunting stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, settle in, clear your mind, let the outside world slip away, and let's begin. Story 1. I tried to shout for help, but the empty alley swallowed my voice before it could go anywhere. The sound that came out of me was weak and broken, barely louder than a breath. It bounced once against the brick walls, then disappeared into the abandoned buildings surrounding me. The whole district felt like it had been left to rot years ago. Broken windows stared down from both sides of the alley. Fire escapes hung crooked and rusted above my head. Old signs creaked in the wind, their letters faded beyond recognition. Somewhere nearby, water dripped steadily from a broken pipe, the sound too calm for the terror closing in behind me. The growls followed, low, throaty, patient. They came from the darkness at the mouth of the alley, then from the side street, then from somewhere above, as if the sound was moving around me in circles. I ran harder, my shoes slipping over broken glass and wet pavement, my lungs burning from the cold air. I could see the end of the alley ahead, a narrow opening leading back toward the main road and the safety of streetlights, passing cars, and people who still believed the city belonged to them. Then one of them landed in front of me. She dropped from above with impossible grace, vaulting over a rusted dumpster and landing lightly on the pavement, as if gravity barely touched her. She was taller than the others, tall enough that I had to look up at her. Her body was lean and powerful beneath torn black clothing. Her movements smooth and deliberate, like a predator that already knew the hunt was over. Her pale face stood out sharply against the darkness. Heavy black eyeliner framed her eyes, but it was the eyes themselves that froze me in place. They glowed vivid green, unnatural and bright, catching what little light came from the distant street lamps and throwing it back like polished glass. Her lips were dark, nearly black, and silver rings pierced her lower lip. When she smiled, I saw the tips of her fangs pressing just past them. Her nostrils flared. She was smelling me. The look on her face changed slightly, not into surprise, not into hunger exactly, but something worse. Recognition. Satisfaction. Like she had been waiting for me to understand where I was. I stumbled backward and slammed my shoulder against a boarded-up door. Pain shot down my arm, but the wood didn't move. I shoved at it again with both hands, desperate to find some weakness, some loose board, some miracle exit. There was none. Just old wood, nailed tight, solid brick, and the steady footsteps of the others drawing closer. They emerged from the side streets one by one. At first, they were only shapes. Then the green eyes appeared. 4 pairs, 6, more. Their bodies moved with the loose confidence of wild animals that had learned to walk like people. They spread out around me, forming a semicircle that pushed me back toward the wall. None of them rushed. None of them needed to. The tallest, one stepped closer. I could hear their hearts. That was the part that made me feel like I was losing my mind. Beneath the growls, beneath the dripping water and the far-off hum of the city, I could hear the heavy rhythm inside their chests. Their heartbeats were faster than mine, stronger, echoing in the narrow alley like drums before a sacrifice. My own pulse hammered wildly in answer. The tall one tilted her head. "You should have stayed on the main roads," she said. Her voice was low and rough, but there was something smooth underneath it, something practiced and calm. Most men hear the howls and walk toward the lights, but you chose the shortcut through our territory. I swallowed hard, trying to look for a gap between them. There had to be one. There had to be some way out. "I didn't know," I said. My voice cracked. Her smile widened. "That's what they all say." I lunged suddenly, aiming for the space between 2 of the smaller figures. For half a second, I thought I might make it. My legs pushed off the pavement, my shoulder dipped, and I threw all my weight forward. A hand caught my arm. It didn't grab me hard at first. It didn't need to. Her fingers wrapped around my bicep with such easy strength that my body stopped mid-motion as if I had run into a chain. Then she pulled me back and slammed me against the wall. The impact knocked the breath from my lungs. Her black nails pressed lightly into my skin. I could feel the threat in them, the promise that one small movement from her would be enough to tear muscle open. She studied me closely, not like a person studying another person, like a hunter deciding whether to let an animal keep struggling. I should have turned back the moment I heard the first howl. I knew that now. I had heard the rumors about this part of the city. The forgotten industrial blocks where factories had closed decades earlier and nobody came after dark unless they had no other choice. People vanished here sometimes. Everyone knew that. The police blamed drugs, gangs, exposure, runaways. The city loved practical explanations because practical explanations kept people from asking why so many bodies were never found whole. I had heard those warnings and laughed at them. I had told myself people were dramatic. I had told myself monsters didn't claim neighborhoods. Then I heard the howls from the main road. Instead of turning back, I followed the sound. Part of me wanted to prove the stories were false. Part of me was curious. And maybe part of me believed that nothing truly terrible could happen to someone like me in a city I thought I understood. Now the alley was closing around me, and the few working street lamps beyond it seemed impossibly far away. The tall one leaned in until her breath brushed my face. It was hot, almost feverish. The tip of one fang touched my cheek. A small sting followed, and I felt a thin line of warmth open beneath my skin. She inhaled again. "You smell like fear," she whispered, "and bad choices." A few of the others laughed softly. The sound wasn't human enough to be comforting. It came out low and clicking, blending with the growls in their throats. I twisted hard, trying to break free. She let me struggle for a second, then pinned me more firmly against the bricks with one arm across my chest. I noticed then that something dark moved behind her, curling through the shadows near the ground. A tail, long, black, and powerful, with a tufted end that flicked once before wrapping around my leg like a living rope. It tightened just enough to hold me in place. I stopped breathing for a moment. The alley seemed to tilt around me. "What are you?" I whispered. Her eyes shone brighter. Hungry. Her free hand moved to my throat, not choking me, only feeling the frantic beat beneath my skin. A pleased rumble rose in her chest. "Such a loud heart," she said. "It thinks running will save it." I shoved my knee up, catching her thigh with as much force as I could manage. The blow would have staggered a normal person. She barely reacted. She exhaled once, amused, and the others moved closer. Their bodies tightened into the semicircle, blocking every escape. Broken glass scattered under their boots. Somewhere above, more shapes shifted along a rooftop, and green eyes watched from the edge. The city itself felt like it was holding its breath. The tall one grabbed both my wrists in one hand and forced them above my head against the wall. Cold bricks scraped my knuckles raw. Her strength was effortless, and that frightened me more than if she had strained. I could feel how little effort it took for her to hold me there. To them, I was not an opponent. I was not even a challenge. I was a delay. "Keep struggling," she said near my ear. "It makes the fear rise." I clenched my teeth and tried not to give her what she wanted. But fear is not something you can hide from creatures built to smell it. Her mouth moved closer to my neck. She did not bite at first. She only hovered there, letting me feel the nearness of the fangs, the heat of her breath, the terrible patience of her hunger. It was worse than if she had attacked immediately. I could feel my mind breaking into pieces. Part of me searched for a weapon, a loose brick, a shard of glass, anything. Another part tried to make sense of her face, of the silver rings, the black makeup, the glowing eyes, the impossible tail wrapped around my leg. She looked like someone who might have once belonged to the human world, or at least had learned how to imitate it. That made it worse. She wasn't a beast from a forest or cave. She was something the city had made room for, something that walked beneath neon signs and fire escapes, hiding in places people called empty. "Let me go," I said. "It came out weak," she laughed. "Let me go," she repeated in my voice, mocking the fear in it. "After you came looking for trouble, I didn't come looking for anything." "No," she said. "You came thinking you could pass through and leave unchanged." She released my wrists only to grab my shoulders and turn me around, pressing my chest against the wall. My cheeks scraped the brick. I tried to push back, but her body weight pinned me there. The others closed in from both sides, their glowing eyes reflected in the puddles beneath us. I could feel them watching, waiting. The tall one leaned close again. "I'll tell you a secret," she murmured. Every man who thought these streets were empty learned the same lesson. Her voice dropped until it seemed to vibrate through my bones. "The city does not forgive intruders." The pressure was light testing. My whole body locked up. And neither do we. I squeezed my eyes shut and thought of the main road. I thought of the bright gas station on the corner where I had almost stopped before choosing the shortcut. I thought of the normal world just a few blocks away. People ordering food, cars waiting at red lights, someone walking a dog, someone laughing on a phone, a whole city full of people who would never know that just beyond their lighted streets, something ancient and hungry had cornered me in the dark. Pain flared suddenly near the base of my neck. Not deep, just enough to break skin. I gasped and she held me still while warmth trickled down under my collar. She tasted it slowly, almost thoughtfully. The others reacted at once. Their growls deepened. Their eyes narrowed. One of them stepped forward, then stopped when the tall one raised a hand. "No," she said. "This one is mine." The words should have made me fight harder. Instead, they emptied me. There was something final in them, something possessive and calm. It was the tone of someone claiming property, not making a threat. My knees weakened. She turned me around again, and I sagged against the wall. Barely able to stand, she kept one hand against my chest, holding me upright. Blood slid slowly down my skin beneath my shirt. The others remained close, their faces half hidden in shadow, silver piercings and black nails catching faint flashes of green light. "Look at me," she commanded. I didn't want to, but I did. Her eyes filled my vision. Green, bright, endless. Inside them, I saw myself reflected. Pale, trembling, bleeding, already lost. My face looked like it belonged to someone else. She smiled. "You ran well," she said. I tried once more to speak, maybe to beg, maybe to curse her, maybe to ask why. No words came. Her head lowered. This time, she did not hesitate. The bite landed between my neck and shoulder. Her fangs sank deep, and the pain was immediate and blinding. My body jerked against her, but she held me close with both arms tight enough that I couldn't fall. A cry tore from my throat and vanished into the alley. The others answered with low, hungry sounds. She drank. The strength left me in waves. At first, I struggled, my hands pushed weakly at her shoulders. My heels scraped against the pavement. Then my arms dropped. The fight drained away with the blood, each pull making the world softer, darker, farther away. The alley sounds stretched and warped. Dripping water. Distant siren. The rustle of wings, maybe pigeons, startled from the roof. The faint answering howls of more creatures deeper in the district. And beneath all of it, her swallowing. Slow, greedy. Steady. My heartbeat tried to keep going. It hammered once, twice, then stumbled. The edges of my vision dimmed. The brick wall behind me felt less solid. The air felt colder, though her arms were still around me. Finally, she lifted her head. Blood shone on her dark lips. For the first time, her expression softened. Not with regret exactly, but with something close enough to hurt. She looked down at me like she was memorizing my face, though I didn't understand why a monster would want to remember anything it killed. "I'll miss you," she whispered. I wanted to hate her. Maybe I did. But dying does strange things to the mind. Fear becomes confusion. Pain becomes distance. The thing killing you becomes the last living presence in the world. Her face was the only thing still clear. Her green eyes, her pale skin, the blood at the corner of her mouth. She pressed her lips to mine for one brief moment. I tasted iron, my own blood. When she pulled away, I tried to breathe. My chest rose once, shallow and uneven. My legs no longer held me. She kept me from collapsing, gentle now in a way that felt crueler than violence. "Sleep," she said near my ear. "The streets will keep you." Then her mouth returned to my throat. There was one final burst of pain, bright, hot. Then everything began to fall away. The alley disappeared first. The broken windows, the dripping pipe, the flickering street lamp at the far end of the block, the others watching from the shadows. All of it faded into a single dark blur. The last thing I felt was her hand brushing my cheek. The last thing I heard was her voice humming softly, almost like a lullaby, while the city held its silence around us. And my last thought, shameful and impossible, drifted through the dark just before I disappeared. I think I loved her. Story 2. I am going to tell you about something that happened to me years ago, back when I was standing at the edge of my own life and trying to decide what kind of person I wanted to become. It changed the way I looked at everything. Before it happened, I thought the world was mostly understandable, strange sometimes, unfair often, but still explainable. If something happened, there was a reason behind it. If I saw something odd, then maybe I had misunderstood it. Maybe I was tired, maybe I was distracted, maybe my mind had connected things that were not really connected. That was how I used to think. I do not think that way anymore. At the time, I had just finished high school. I was not an amazing student when it came to grades. I passed, but nobody would have called me brilliant based on report cards alone. Still, I had a way of standing out. Teachers noticed the way I wrote, the way I spoke, the way I thought about things. Some liked that about me. Others found it difficult. I was always a little strange. As a child, I was quiet in ways people did not understand. As a teenager, I became even harder to read. I noticed details other people ignored. I had opinions that sounded too serious for my age. Sometimes it made them dislike me. During school, I made a few friends. I probably made a few enemies too. But none of that felt important after graduation. Once I received my diploma, I stepped away from that whole part of my life. I left behind the school, the classrooms, the teachers, the hallways, and most of the people I used to know. In a way, I left behind my old self too. Part of that decision was mine. I wanted to start fresh. I wanted to build something that belonged to me, not something shaped by other people's opinions. I wanted to figure out who I was without the noise of school, classmates, gossip, and expectations. The change was not easy, but I could handle it. Sometimes I thought back to those days, the old routines, the familiar faces, the moments that once felt huge and now seemed almost silly. But I cannot say I truly miss them. I was not trying to return to old good times. I wanted to create new ones. So my next step was college. That sounded simple, but it was not. I struggled for a long time to choose the right degree. I did not want to waste years chasing something that meant nothing to me. I wanted a path that matched my mind and my future. Eventually, after enough thinking, doubt, and late-night research, I decided what I wanted. Then came the paperwork, and that was where the story really began. College applications always sound easy when people talk about them from a distance. Fill out some forms, get some documents, pay some fees, wait for a response. But in real life, it was exhausting. I needed recommendation letters. I needed documents from old teachers and other people who knew my work. I also needed to renew my passport around the same time. On top of that, I had to save enough money for the application fees because my family was complicated, and asking them for help was not really an option. So I did most of it alone. That meant walking from place to place, dealing with bad weather, crowded buses, government offices, traffic, and the kind of stress that builds slowly until even small things start to feel impossible. I lived in a suburban area outside the city. My home was not exactly isolated, but it was far enough from everything important that getting anywhere took effort. There were fields around parts of the neighborhood, including a narrow dirt path between two cornfields that people sometimes used as a shortcut. That path is important, because that was where I first saw the stone. At first, it meant nothing. It was just a stone in the middle of the path, hand-sized, flat on one side, uneven around the edges. There were pale white lines across it, almost like scratches. One side looked darker than the rest, as if it had been wet longer than it should have been. I noticed it because I noticed things. My mind works in a way that can sometimes trap me in thoughts, but it also catches details other people would walk past without caring. A crack in pavement, a strange shape in wood, a sound that repeats too evenly, a stone in the wrong place. But that first time, I barely cared. It had just started raining, and I was more focused on keeping my documents dry and getting to the bus stop. I stepped around the stone and continued walking through the cornfield path, shoulders hunched, rain hitting the back of my neck. By the time I reached the city, I had forgotten about it. A few days later, I had to go back into town for more paperwork. That day went better than expected. The traffic was lighter than usual, the offices were not too crowded, and for once I got everything done quickly. I was in a good mood when I sat at the bus stop waiting to go home. The bus arrived. I stepped inside, found a seat by the window, and let myself relax. Then the bus pulled away. As we moved past the stop, I looked through the rain-streaked glass and saw something underneath the bench where I had just been sitting. A stone, flat on one side. White marks across the surface, dark wet patch near the edge. My stomach tightened. For a moment, I could not breathe normally. It looked exactly like the stone from the cornfield path, but that was impossible. The bus stop was miles away from where I had first seen it. Stones did not follow people. Stones did not move through towns and place themselves under benches. I stared through the window until the bus turned the corner and the stop disappeared from view. For the rest of the ride, I tried to convince myself it was only a coincidence. There were millions of stones in the world. Some of them had to look similar. Maybe my brain was connecting two ordinary things because I was tired and stressed. Maybe I had not even seen it clearly. By the time I got home, I had mostly convinced myself. Mostly. That night, I took a different way home because farmers were harvesting the corn and the shortcut was blocked. I walked along the edge of the forest instead. The air smelled of wet leaves and turned soil. It was dark, but not frightening. Not yet. I ate dinner, went to bed, and did not think about the stone again. For a while, nothing happened. Then I needed to go back to the city to get a photo taken for my new ID. That day was miserable from the start. The rain came down all morning. A thunderstorm was moving toward the area, and the sky had that green-gray heaviness that always makes the world feel unsafe. I wanted to get my picture taken quickly and return home before the storm got worse. But nothing worked out. The traffic in the city was terrible. Every bus was packed. One route got canceled. I waited for hours under a leaking shelter, watching people shove their way into buses so full that faces were pressed against the glass. By the time I finally gave up waiting, it was already getting dark. I decided to walk part of the way. Because of the traffic and crowds, I took a narrow alley I knew would be mostly empty. Looking back now, that was a stupid choice. The alley was long, poorly lit, and squeezed between old buildings with boarded windows and rusted drain pipes. Rainwater ran through the center like a shallow stream. But I was tired, frustrated, and just wanted to get home. At first, the alley was empty. No people. No voices. Just rain dripping from rooftops and my shoes splashing through puddles. Then I saw something ahead of me. A pale shape in the middle of the path. I slowed down. My body recognized it before my mind did. The white scratched lines, the flat surface, the darker wet side, the size of a hand. The stone was there. The same stone. This time, I could not explain it away so easily. I stood frozen in the alley while rain tapped against metal fire escapes above me. My thoughts began moving too quickly, crashing into each other. How? How could it be here? Had someone placed it there? Was someone following me? Was I losing my mind? I closed my eyes, opened them again, and the stone was still there. I did not touch it. I did not go closer. I ran. I ran past it with my head down like a child passing a dark bedroom doorway. My shoulder brushed against the wet brick wall, and my shoes slipped twice, but I kept going until I reached the street. After that day, I hated looking at my new ID. The picture was awful. My face looked pale and confused. My hair was damp from the rain, but the worst part was my eyes. There was fear in them. Real fear, the kind that does not belong in an ID photo. Fear of something unknown. Fear of something impossible. That night, I ran all the way home. The rain turned the fields into mud. The harvested cornfields stretched wide and dark under the storm, broken stalks sticking up from the ground like old bones. Lightning flashed every few seconds, lighting the world in violent white bursts. I cut across the field, not caring that my shoes were sinking into the mud. I only wanted distance between myself and that alley. Then I fell. Not slipped. Fell. It felt like something had hooked my foot. My body slammed into the mud, face first. Cold, wet earth filled my mouth and nose. For a second, I lay there stunned, rain beating against my back. When I pushed myself up, I saw the impression my face had left in the mud. I looked around, trying to figure out what had tripped me. My shoes were muddy, but I had not twisted my ankle. There was no root, no wire, no broken stalk in the right place. Then lightning flashed, and I saw it, directly in front of me. The stone. The same stone, sitting in the mud like it had been waiting. Something inside me broke then. I felt tears in my eyes, not from sadness, but from a fear so strong it made my thoughts collapse. My heart pounded painfully. My breath came too fast. Every reasonable part of my mind tried to reject what I was seeing. But the stone was there. The same pale scratches, the same dark wet side, the same impossible presence. Lightning vanished and darkness swallowed the field again. I do not know where the courage came from. Maybe it was not courage, maybe it was anger. Maybe I had finally become too afraid to stay afraid. When the next flash of lightning came, I grabbed the stone. It was colder than it should have been. Cold like metal left in snow. I shouted something. I do not remember what, then I threw it as hard as I could into the darkness of the field. It disappeared somewhere beyond the broken corn stalks. I stood there breathing hard, staring after it. Then my memory cuts out. I do not remember walking home. I do not remember entering the house. I do not remember changing clothes or falling asleep. All I know is that I woke up in my bed the next morning. At first I thought maybe it had been a nightmare. A very vivid nightmare, yes, but still a nightmare. Stress could do strange things to the mind. Fear could make ordinary memories twist themselves into horror. I laughed quietly at myself and sat up. Then I looked at the clock. It was not morning, it was afternoon, 13:06. I remember staring at those numbers for longer than necessary. The house was quiet, too quiet. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving everything damp and gray. My body ached as if I had run for miles. There was mud under my fingernails. Still, I tried to act normal. I went to the kitchen to make food, but before I started cooking, I remembered I needed to use the bathroom. I had a habit of reading newspapers while sitting there, so I went to the front door to grab the ones the postman usually left. I opened the door and stopped. There are moments so frightening that the body forgets how to react. You do not scream. You do not run. You do not even breathe properly. You just stand there as if your soul has stepped back from your body. That was what happened to me. I did not even feel the mug of hot coffee slip from my hand. It shattered near my foot, spilling burning liquid across my skin. Later, I would see the redness and blistering, but in that moment, I felt nothing. because on my welcome mat, directly in front of my door, sat the stone. Dry now, clean, waiting. Underneath it was a folded note. I do not know how long I stood there before I bent down and picked it up. My fingers shook so badly, I almost dropped it. The paper was damp around the edges, but the writing was clear. 4 words. I have found you. I wish I could tell you I called the police. I wish I could tell you I told someone immediately. But what would I have said? A stone followed me home? A rock left me a message? Something impossible had decided I belonged to it? No one would have believed me. I barely believed myself. The days after that became strange. I stopped going out unless I absolutely had to. When I did leave, I checked every sidewalk, every bus stop, every alley, every patch of grass. I became obsessed with stones. Every pebble made my heart jump. Every pale rock in the corner of my eye made my stomach twist. But I did not see it again for a long time. That should have comforted me. It did not. Because sometimes absence is worse than presence. When something is there, at least you know where it is. When it disappears, it can be anywhere. I finished my college application late. I missed deadlines. I stopped sleeping properly. My family thought I was stressed about my future. And in a way, they were right. But they did not understand that my future had become something much larger and darker than college. I started to feel watched. Not by a person, by something patient. I would sit in my room at night and feel pressure at the back of my neck like someone standing just behind me. Sometimes I woke up convinced I had heard something sliding across the floorboards, a slow scraping sound. Stone against wood. Whenever I opened my door, nothing was there, except once. One night, weeks after the note, I woke up at exactly 13 minutes past 3. I do not know why I checked the time immediately, but I did. 3:13. The room was dark, but the moon gave enough light for me to see the floor. There was mud beside my bed, a single wet streak leading from the closed door to the place where I slept. At the end of the streak was a small scrap of paper, no stone, just paper. I picked it up with numb fingers. The message was shorter this time. Don't throw me away again. After that, something in me changed permanently. I stopped believing the universe was simple. I stopped believing humans were the only things moving through the world with intention. There are things around us that we do not understand. Maybe they have always been there. Maybe they watch quietly, waiting for us to notice them. And maybe noticing them is the mistake. I do not know what the stone was. A spirit, a curse, a thing from somewhere else, a joke played by something ancient and cruel. I only know that it found me. And once something like that finds you, it never truly leaves. Years have passed. I live somewhere else now. I built a different life, or tried to. I went to college, I worked, I met people. I learned to smile when I needed to. From the outside, I probably look normal enough, but I still check my doorstep every morning. I still avoid stones with white scratches. I still cannot walk through cornfields after dark. And whenever it rains heavily, I hear it, that faint scraping sound, stone against pavement, stone against the world, moving closer. I have not received another note in years. But sometimes, when I wake in the middle of the night, I feel certain that somewhere outside, beneath a bush or beside a road or under a bus stop bench, that same stone is waiting, watching, remembering. I used to think we were alone in the universe. Now I know better. Something is watching us. Maybe many things are watching us. And if you ever see something ordinary appear somewhere it should not be, do not touch it. Do not throw it. Do not laugh it off. Do not think you are too smart to be afraid. Just keep walking. Pretend you did not notice. Because the moment it knows you have seen it, the game begins. And sooner or later, it will find you. Story 3. Our shift had already been going for hours by the time things started to slow down. It had been one of those long 12-hour nights where the pressure sits in your chest even when nothing is happening. Being a paramedic is strange like that. A quiet night never really feels peaceful. It feels like the city is holding its breath, waiting to throw something at you. So far, we had only taken 2 calls. The first was an elderly woman who slipped in her bathtub and fractured her femur. Those calls always hit me harder than I like to admit. Older people look so small when they're hurt, so helpless. Her husband had found her quickly and called 911, which probably saved her from lying there for hours in pain. The second call was a traffic accident. It looked worse than it was when we arrived. 2 cars, both badly damaged, but no one was seriously injured. One driver went to the hospital for observation because he was dizzy and complaining about chest pain, but compared to what it could have been, it was a blessing. After that, nothing. No calls, no screaming radio, no sirens. Just me and Ruby parked at a gas station trying to enjoy a few quiet minutes before the next disaster. Ruby was almost 10 years younger than me. When she first became my partner, she was still new, still too clean around the edges. I remember not being happy about it. I didn't want to train someone fresh. I didn't want to be the person who showed her what broken bodies looked like, what grief sounded like, what silence felt like after you realized there was nothing left you could do. But that was 4 years ago. Ruby learned fast. She learned how to step through blood without slipping, how to talk to a dying person without letting her voice shake, how to work on someone's chest while their family screamed nearby, how to keep moving even after a call followed you home. By then, she was more than my partner. She was the only person who understood the job the way I did. The only one who knew the weight we carried because she carried it too. I was sitting in the driver's seat, half listening to the radio and half watching Ruby outside by the pump with her coffee when dispatch came through. Ambulance 18, we have a call. I grabbed the radio immediately. This is 18. Go ahead. A pregnant woman has collapsed, the dispatcher said. Limited information. Husband called it in. Can you respond and check it out? Copy that, I replied. We're en route. I flipped on the siren for Ruby. She looked over at me, tossed her coffee into the trash, and jogged back to the ambulance. Within seconds, we were pulling out of the gas station with the lights flashing and the siren cutting through the empty streets. That feeling never changes. No matter how many calls you take, the moment the siren starts, adrenaline hits. Your body wakes up before your mind does. Every turn matters. Every second matters. The MDT led us toward the edge of the city. Then, farther out, the streets became narrower, then rougher. Soon, the road was uneven beneath the tires and the GPS started acting unreliable. I frowned at the screen. Ruby asked dispatch to confirm the address, I said. She picked up the radio. Dispatch, this is Ambulance 18. Can you confirm exact location? Static crackled before the answer came. Copy, Ambulance 18. Caller says follow the old road. First dirt road on the left, first mansion down that way. We're going to rich people, Jacob. Hope you dressed nice. I laughed tiredly and turned onto the dirt road. A shape appeared ahead in the darkness. At first, it looked like a hill or a huge black rock sitting against the night. Then the headlights caught pieces of it, and I realized it was a building. A mansion. A very old one. It rose above the trees like something that had been left there by a different century. The walls were dark with age and dirt. The windows were shuttered, but a faint yellow glow leaked from behind some of them. It made the whole place look like a sleeping animal with its eyes half open. Ruby's smile disappeared. That is creepy, she said. A little, I admitted. I parked the ambulance in front of the mansion. The red and blue emergency lights flashed across the walls, making the shadows jump and crawl. For just a second, I didn't want to get out. Then the front door opened. A boy ran out. He couldn't have been more than 10. He came sprinting down the steps toward us, waving both arms and screaming, "Hurry, hurry." I heard the rear ambulance doors swing open as she grabbed the bag. I stepped out, and the moment my boots hit the muddy ground, the boy grabbed my arm with both hands. "Please," he screamed. "Hurry. My sister. Hurry." He yanked at me like he thought he could drag me into the house by force. The first thing I noticed was his clothing. It was old-fashioned, heavy fabric, plain. Nothing like what kids wear now. He looked like he belonged in a history museum or some isolated religious community. The second thing I noticed was his face. I hate saying that. I've seen all kinds of birth defects and deformities in my work, and I try not to react. But in the flashing lights, his features looked twisted, not just unusual. Wrong in a way that made my eyes want to move away from him. "It's almost here," he cried. "Please hurry." "Where are your parents?" I asked, already moving toward the mansion. He didn't answer. He only pulled harder, spit gathering at the corners of his mouth as he shouted about his sister. Ruby came up beside me with the medical bag over her shoulder. Her face was already tense. Before either of us could ask another question, a loud voice boomed from the doorway. "Edmund." The boy froze. A man stood at the open front door. He was older, maybe around 60, bald and thin. He wore a long black garment that looked almost like a priest's robe. Warm light spilled from behind him, making his outline look sharp and strange. "Get away from there," the man said. "Don't you have anything better to do?" He stood completely still for 1 second. Then he let go of my hand and ran into the darkness, screaming for help as he vanished between the trees. Ruby looked at me. "Jacob?" The old man in the doorway smiled. "Please come inside," he said calmly. "Forgive Edmund. He's a difficult case." It didn't quite. He stopped. He didn't finish the sentence. Ruby and I exchanged a look, but we still climbed the steps. We had a call. A pregnant woman had collapsed. Whatever was strange about this place, we had to check on the patient. The front door was enormous, nearly 10 feet tall, made of black wood and old iron. It stood open like a mouth. We went inside. The man turned and walked ahead of us without any urgency at all. That bothered me immediately. On calls like that, family members are usually panicked. They run, they beg. They lead you to the patient as fast as possible. This man moved like he was giving us a tour. The inside of the mansion was huge and almost empty. No furniture, no paintings, no rugs. Just long halls, bare walls, high ceilings, and yellow light from old fixtures. Every footstep echoed. The air smelled stale like dust and damp wood. Ruby kept glancing at me. I could tell she wanted to say something, but she was trying to stay professional. Finally, she spoke. "Sir," she said, unable to hide her impatience, "shouldn't we be moving faster? We were told a pregnant woman collapsed." Slowly, he turned around. His smile looked forced, but his gray eyes did not look at Ruby. They looked straight at me. "Now that you're here," he said, "she'll be just fine." He showed us his teeth. Yellow, uneven, dirty. I felt my stomach tighten. Then he turned and continued walking. Ruby stepped closer to me and whispered, "Jacob, this is bad. This guy, the house, that kid, all of it. But we need to confirm there's a patient." "There isn't a patient," she said. "She's here," the old man said without turning around. Ruby went silent. He stopped beside a wide staircase curving up to the second floor. "She's upstairs?" I asked. The old man smiled again. "Yes," he said sweetly. "Upstairs. She needs help." His expression did not change. "My legs aren't what they used to be." He stood at the bottom of the staircase, his long robe brushing the floor. His slippered feet stuck out beneath it. He looked almost nailed in place. Then a voice called from above, "Father." Ruby and I both looked up. A young man stood at the top of the stairs. He was dressed in a tuxedo, not a modern one, something old, formal, and strange. His hair was neatly combed, and he had a thin mustache that made him look like a character from an old British drama. "Leave it to me," the young man said. "I'll escort them." He hurried down the stairs and stopped in front of me, offering his hand. "Reginald," he said, "a pleasure. Thank you for coming. This way, please. My wife isn't feeling well." I shook his hand automatically. His skin was soft and cold. Ruby's face told me exactly what she was thinking. "Leave. Call police. Get out now." but we still didn't have a clear reason. Weird clothing and creepy people were not enough, not when there might have been a pregnant woman upstairs in real trouble. So we followed Reginald. The mansion seemed to stretch as we moved deeper into it. Hallways turned into more hallways. Rooms opened into more empty rooms. The place felt too large from the inside, like the walls were slowly moving away from us. Reginald walked ahead like he knew every inch of it. Then, one of the doors beside us creaked open. A little girl stepped out. Reginald moved immediately, blocking most of the doorway. "Vivian," he snapped, "why are you out here?" The girl had messy blonde hair half tucked beneath a white headscarf. She looked sleepy and confused. Behind her in the dim room, I saw other children sitting up in beds. One had an oversized head. Another had arms that looked too short for his body. "I thought it was time," Vivian whispered. "Not yet, sweetheart," Reginald said, his voice suddenly gentle. He stroked her cheek. Then his tone hardened. "That's enough, children. Back to bed. All of you." He pushed Vivian back inside and closed the door. Then he tested the handle to make sure it was locked. "Kids," he said with a fake little laugh. Ruby leaned close to me. "This isn't right," she whispered. "We need police." "For what?" I whispered back. "What do I say, there are strange kids in a room?" She stared at me like I was being stupid. Maybe I was. Actually, I know I was. Reginald looked back at us from farther down the hall. "Are you coming? We're almost there. My wife really does need you." I nodded and kept walking. Ruby followed, but I could feel her anger and fear beside me. At the end of the corridor, Reginald stopped at a door. A massive man stood guard beside it. He was huge, with broad shoulders and a blank, slack face. His clothes were held up by crooked suspenders and his chin was scarred. He looked young and old at the same time, like a teenage boy trapped inside the body of something much larger. "Hello," I said carefully. He grunted. Reginald placed a hand on the doorknob, then paused. "Before we go in, please put on gloves and masks," he said. "You have them, yes?" "Of course," I said. Ruby opened the bag and passed me gloves. We both put on masks while keeping an eye on the large man. He was picking his nose. Then he ate what he found. So much for keeping anything sterile. Reginald smiled as if everything were perfectly normal, then opened the door. But we still did not reach the patient. The door led to another room. This one had gray wallpaper and a damp smell. A chandelier hung overhead, casting warm yellow light over plastic chairs lined against the walls. People were sitting in those chairs. Men in dark, heavy clothing, women in long black skirts. They looked like they belonged to some strict religious community, but their faces made my skin go cold. Some had melted-looking noses. Some had no lips. Others were missing ears or had jaws that sat wrong or skulls that looked too narrow or too wide. They all turned to look at us. No one spoke. Ruby moved so close behind me that her shoulder pressed into my back. Her hand hovered near the radio on her uniform. "Looks like a lot of people live here," I said, trying to sound calm. "Oh, they don't live here," Reginald said cheerfully. "Their family, they came because of the baby." We followed him across the room. Every eye followed us. At the next door, Reginald stopped and opened it. The room beyond was dim. A small lamp glowed near a bed hidden behind curtains. At first, all I could see was the shape of something large beneath the fabric. Then I heard it. A woman moaning, soft, weak, in pain. Ruby whispered, "Jacob, I hear it," I said. Reginald stepped inside. "Right this way," he said. "Ah, it's so dark." He flipped on the light. Now we could see the bed more clearly. Something enormous lay on it. For one second, I thought it was a pile of blankets or pillows. Then Reginald pulled the curtain aside. The woman on the bed was alive, barely. She thrashed weakly, her head rolling from side to side. She wore torn clothing that looked like it might once have been part of a waitress uniform or bistro outfit. Her wrists were tied to the bed, and her stomach, I have seen pregnant women near delivery. I have seen serious swelling, tumors, fluid buildup. I have never seen anything like that. Her belly was huge, stretched into a round, shining mass that looked large enough to hold a grown man. The skin was thin and tight, veins standing out dark beneath it. It looked ready to split open. Ruby gasped. "What the fuck?" I reached for her, but she jerked back in fear. That was when the people from the waiting room moved behind us. I didn't hear them come in. I only realized they were there when Ruby backed into them. "Fuck you! Let go of me," she screamed. Everything exploded into chaos. I grabbed Ruby's arm and pulled her toward me. A short figure with no lips lunged from the side, and I shoved him back hard enough that he stumbled into the crowd. "Everyone back," I shouted. "Back up now." Reginald stood beside the bed, still too calm. "Easy," he said. "Just help my wife. Nothing bad has to happen. It's your duty." "Like hell it is," I snapped. "We're leaving." Reginald's face changed. For the first time, he looked truly shocked. "You can't leave," he said. "This woman has carried the Lord of Worlds for 3 years. You can't abandon her now." Ruby and I backed toward the wall. The crowd pushed in, then Ruby pointed at the woman on the bed. "Jacob." The woman's stomach rippled, not like a baby kicking, like something large rolling under the skin. The woman screamed. Reginald spun toward her. "No," he cried. "No, not yet." He pressed his head against her stretched belly, listening. The woman's scream turned into a choking shriek. Then blood burst from between her legs. It sprayed across the sheets in a thick red rush, soaking everything instantly. Streams poured over the edge of the bed and splattered onto the floor. Ruby froze. I froze too. Reginald whispered, "Fuck." Then he ran. He bolted through a door at the far side of the room and slammed it behind him. The crowd began wailing. They clawed at their own faces and hair, sobbing and screaming like mourners at a funeral. That was our only chance. I grabbed Ruby and pulled her toward the door Reginald had used. We tried to slip between the bed and the crowd while they were distracted. Then, something moved between the woman's legs. A hand came out. It grabbed her thigh. Ruby made a sound I will never forget. A figure pulled itself free from the woman's body. It had no skin. Its red flesh shined wetly under the light. Bones showed in places. It looked like a human body that had been stripped raw and only half formed. Half of it was still inside her when it lifted its head. Then it spoke. With the woman's voice, "Jacob, help me." That was when I ran. I dragged Ruby with me toward the door. The crowd surged after us. I hit the door hard. Locked. I hit it again. The old wood cracked. I threw my shoulder into it a third time and it finally gave way. We crashed into the next room. Ruby stumbled after me. Then she stopped. Blood spread across the front of her white uniform. A knife was buried in her side. For a second, my mind refused to understand what I was seeing. Then Ruby collapsed. "No!" I screamed. A one-eyed, pig-faced figure stood in the broken doorway, glaring at us. I lunged at him and punched him with everything I had. His nose burst under my fist, and he fell backward. More of them pushed toward the doorway. A huge woman with no nose rushed me. I kicked her in the chest, and she fell back into the others. I slammed the door shut and shoved a heavy wardrobe in front of it. Fists hit the other side immediately. Voices screamed, "Help me, Jacob!" the newborn thing cried from behind the door. I ignored it and dropped beside Ruby. Her face was pale, too pale. Blood pooled beneath her, dark and fast. The knife was deep in her side. "Ruby," I said, shaking her gently. "Stay with me. Come on, stay with me." Her eyelids fluttered, but she didn't answer. I grabbed my radio. "Dispatch, this is Ambulance 18. I shouted, "Medic down, send police, send backup, anyone." "Dispatch." The radio crackled, then went dead. The wardrobe scraped against the floor as they pushed from the other side. Hands reached through the gap. I pressed both hands to Ruby's wound, but there was too much blood. The jump bag was still in the other room. "Ruby, please." I whispered. "Don't do this." The door burst open. I fought because there was nothing else to do. A tall, thin man jumped at me. I grabbed him and slammed him to the floor. A woman clawed at my face, her nails tearing my skin. Someone hit me in the jaw. Another grabbed my throat and squeezed until black spots filled my vision. I punched, kicked, shoved, bit. I don't know how many I hurt. I don't know how many I killed. I only know they kept coming. Someone slammed into my side and I stumbled backward. My heel caught on a body on the floor. I fell hard into the window. Glass shattered. I went through it with two of them still hanging on to me. The fall knocked everything out of me. I hit mud and stone. Pain exploded through my body. One of them landed nearby with a sickening crack. Another hung from the gutter above, twitching. I lay there staring up at the mansion. I couldn't move. A small voice spoke beside me. Reginald messed it up again. Hedmund crouched near me, holding a snail in his hand. He looked at my broken body with mild curiosity. "But I'm sure he'll start over," he said. Then he crushed the snail between his fingers. Everything went black. When I woke up, dawn was breaking. For a while, I didn't know where I was. Then pain brought everything back. My arm hung wrong. My fingers were swollen and bent. My ribs screamed every time I breathed. My radio was shattered against my belt. But I was alive, and Ruby was still inside. I forced myself to stand. I should have gone to the ambulance. I should have called for help, but I couldn't leave her there. So I went back inside the mansion. The front door stood open. The house was silent now. Everyone inside was dead. The old priest sat on the stairs with his eyes rolled back. Bloody foam had dried at the corner of his mouth. The children in the locked room were dead too, lying still in their beds like discarded dolls. I found bodies everywhere. In the halls, in the waiting room, in the room with the bed. The swollen woman was dead. The crowd was dead. The skinless thing was gone. So was Ruby. Only a massive pool of blood marked the place where she had fallen. Reginald was gone too. That was when Edmund's words came back to me. He'll start over. I don't remember leaving the mansion. I don't remember reaching the ambulance. I only remember sitting in the driver's seat at sunrise, covered in blood that was not all mine, staring at Ruby's empty seat beside me. Eventually, backup found me. I told them as much as I could. Not everything. No one would have believed everything. They searched the mansion, but by then it was just an empty ruin. No bodies, no blood, no priest, no children, no bed, no woman, no Ruby. Only dust, only old walls, only me, half dead and babbling about a mansion full of monsters. They asked if I had been attacked. They asked where my partner was. They asked why the call did not exist in dispatch records. That was the part they kept coming back to. There had been no call, no pregnant woman, no husband, no address sent to our unit. Nothing. But Ruby was still missing, and I was still covered in her blood. It has been 3 weeks now. They suspended me while the investigation continues. They don't say it out loud, but I know what they think. They think I hurt her. They think I snapped on shift, did something to my partner, and invented a story too strange to be checked. Maybe that would be easier to believe. But last night, my home phone rang. No one has that number except my mother in work. When I answered, there was only breathing at first. Then a man's voice, soft, polite, familiar. "Jacob," Reginald said. "My wife isn't feeling very well. I dropped the phone. But before the line went dead, I heard something behind his voice. A woman crying, weak, scared, alive, Ruby. And then, from far away, something newborn whispered my name." Story 4. When I was about 12 years old, I spent a lot of time at my best friend's house. For this story, I'll call him Jack. He lived in a quiet neighborhood, but his backyard didn't feel like it belonged there. Behind his house was a huge wooded area that stretched farther back than any of us kids had ever explored. It wasn't just a few trees or a small patch of land. It was thick, dark, and tangled, the kind of place where the branches seemed to crowd together as if they were trying to keep people out. During the day, those woods felt exciting. They made us feel like explorers. Jack and I would grab sticks and pretend they were swords, or we'd make little forts out of fallen branches. Sometimes we'd dare each other to go deeper than before, counting our steps like we were entering some forbidden place. The strange thing was how quickly his house disappeared behind you. You could walk maybe 30 feet in, maybe even less depending on the angle, and when you turned around, you could barely see the back porch anymore. Another 20 feet after that, and the house might as well have never existed. As kids, that made the woods feel magical. Looking back now, it was dangerous, really dangerous. The ground was uneven, full of roots, rocks, holes, and old dead branches hidden under leaves. It would have been easy to trip even in daylight. At night, it was something else entirely. But when you're 12, danger doesn't feel real. It feels like something that happens in movies or to other people, not to you and your best friend in a backyard you think you know. One summer day, Jack and I finally convinced our parents to let us have a sleepover. At the time, it felt like we had been begging forever, even though we probably had one only a few weeks before. Sleepovers always felt like a big event back then. We planned everything like it was some huge mission. Snacks, video games, movies, and staying awake as late as possible. But this time, we wanted to do something different. Jack had an older brother named Chase. He was a few years older than us, old enough to seem cool and annoying at the same time. He acted like he didn't want anything to do with us, but every once in a while he would join in if the game sounded fun enough. That afternoon, while we were hanging around the backyard, one of us suggested playing hide-and-seek in the woods after sunset. At first, it sounded like the best idea ever. The more we talked about it, the more excited we got. We decided we would wait until it got properly dark, then go into the woods with flashlights. There would be 2 seekers and 1 hider. The hider would get a 30-second head start, then the other 2 would come looking. Simple rules. Nothing complicated. Just the 3 of us running around in the dark, trying to scare each other and not get caught. Now that I'm older, I can't believe any adult allowed this. Maybe they didn't really understand how deep the woods went. Maybe they assumed we'd stay close to the house. Maybe they thought Chase being with us made it safe. Whatever the reason, nobody stopped us. When night came, the woods changed completely. During the day, sunlight filtered through the leaves and made everything look green and alive. At night, the trees became tall, black shapes. The spaces between them looked too deep. The sounds were different, too. Crickets, shifting leaves, distant animals all blending together into a constant background noise that made it hard to tell where anything was coming from. Each of us had a flashlight, though mine was the weakest. Jack had a newer one that was bright and strong. Chase had one that looked heavy and old, but worked fine. Mine was smaller, dimmer, and probably had batteries that should have been changed weeks earlier. I didn't care at the time, I just wanted to play. The first round went perfectly. Jack hid, and Chase and I searched for him. We found him crouched behind a fallen log, trying not to laugh. The second round was just as fun. Chase hid farther back than Jack had, and when we finally found him, he jumped out and scared us both so badly that I almost dropped my flashlight. By the time the third round started, I was completely relaxed. It was my turn to hide. Jack and Chase stood near the edge of the woods and started counting out loud. 1, 2, 3. I took off running. I pushed through low branches and stepped over roots as fast as I could. I remember feeling thrilled, like I had to make this hiding spot the best one of the night. I wanted to go farther than either of them had gone. I wanted them to struggle to find me. The deeper I went, the thicker the woods became. Branches scraped my arms. Leaves brushed against my face. The ground sloped down slightly, then rose again. My flashlight barely helped. It gave off a weak yellow cone of light that shook with every breath and every step. Most of what I could see came from the moon, but even that was fading as the trees grew closer together overhead. The farther I went, the less the outside world seemed to exist. Finally, I found a large rock sticking out of the ground. It was wide enough for me to crouch behind, and it sat near a cluster of thick bushes that would hide me from anyone walking by too quickly. I dropped down behind it, switched my flashlight toward the ground so it wouldn't give me away, and tried to control my breathing. For the first few minutes, everything felt normal. I could hear Jack and Chase somewhere far behind me, though their voices were too faint to make out clearly. I grinned to myself, thinking I had chosen the perfect spot. I imagined them walking around in circles, getting frustrated while I stayed hidden. Then I heard something else. At first, it blended into the sounds of the woods. I thought it might have been crickets or maybe wind moving through leaves. But then I heard it again. Help. The word was soft, stretched out, and distant. I held my breath and listened. For a moment, there was nothing, just the buzzing of insects and the quiet shifting of the forest. Then it came again. Help me. It was definitely a voice. There was no mistaking it the second time. Someone was saying, help me, but something about it sounded wrong. I still don't know exactly how to describe it. It wasn't just far away. It sounded buzzy, like the voice was coming through a bad speaker or being pushed through a swarm of insects. The words were clear enough to understand, but they didn't sound natural. I stayed crouched behind the rock, unable to move. Then I realized it sounded like Jack. That made the fear change. For a few seconds, I wasn't scared of the voice anymore. I was scared for him. I thought maybe he had fallen. Maybe he had tripped on a root, hit his head, or broken something. Maybe that was why his voice sounded strange. Maybe he was hurt badly and trying to call out. The voice came from deeper in the woods in front of me. That confused me. I had been hiding quietly, listening carefully, and I hadn't heard anyone pass me. No footsteps, no snapping branches, nothing. Jack should have been behind me with Chase, searching from the direction of the house. There was no reason for his voice to be coming from farther in. But I was 12, and if your best friend sounds like he needs help, you don't sit there thinking through every possibility. I stood up and ran toward the voice. Jack? I called out. There was no answer except that same soft cry. Help, help me. I moved faster, pushing branches away from my face. My flashlight flickered once, then again. I smacked it against my palm without stopping. Then it died completely. The woods around me dropped into near darkness. I stopped so suddenly I almost fell forward. I hit the flashlight again and again, harder each time. Nothing, not even a weak flicker. I remember thinking the batteries must have died, and for some reason that ordinary thought made the situation feel even worse. Without the flashlight, I felt blind. The trees above blocked most of the moonlight now, leaving only faint silver patches on the ground. I should have turned back right then. I didn't. The voice came again, closer this time. Help me. It sounded like Jack, but also not like Jack. It had his tone, his pitch, maybe even the same little crack in his voice, but there was no real emotion in it. No panic, no pain, no breathlessness. It was more like something repeating words it had learned. I kept going. I moved slowly now, using my hands to feel my way around branches and tree trunks. Every step made dry leaves crunch under my shoes. My heart was beating so hard that I could hear it in my ears. I kept whispering Jack's name, but the forest didn't answer me in any normal way. Eventually, the trees opened into a small clearing. It wasn't very large, just a break in the woods where the moonlight managed to reach the ground. The grass there was pale and low, and everything looked strangely still. That was where the voice was coming from. At the far side of the clearing, I saw a shape on the ground. A heap. My first thought was that it was Jack. I ran toward it without thinking, but after only a few steps, I began to slow down. Something was wrong with the shape. At first, I thought it was just the darkness playing tricks on me, but the closer I got, the more clearly I could see that it wasn't Jack. It was too long, too thin, Its arms and legs looked stretched out like they belonged to something that had been pulled apart and badly put back together. The body was crouched low near the ground, folded in a way no person should have been able to fold. I wanted to stop. I wanted to turn around and run back through the woods as fast as I could, but I couldn't. That was the worst part. For one horrifying second, I thought I was paralyzed. But then I realized I was still moving. My legs were taking slow, steady steps forward. I was walking toward it even though every part of me was screaming to run away. I couldn't control myself. The thing lifted its head. Its eyes opened. They were bright yellow. Not like a flashlight, not like an animal's eyes catching the light. They seemed to glow on their own, sharp and piercing, like two little fires burning in the dark. When those eyes locked onto me, my whole body went cold. "Help!" it said again. This time I saw its mouth move. "Help me!" The voice was Jack's, but the face was not Jack's. I don't even know if it had a proper face. I remember pale skin stretched too tightly over sharp bones. I remember a mouth too wide for the head. I remember those yellow eyes staring with no expression at all. It slowly reached one long arm toward me. The arm seemed to unfold more than lift, like there were too many joints hidden under the skin. Its fingers were thin and bony, each one longer than it should have been. They stretched toward my chest, and I knew with absolute certainty that if it touched me, I would never leave that clearing. I tried to scream. Nothing came out. Then a bright light appeared behind me. Someone shouted my name. The creature's head snapped toward the light. The hold over me broke instantly. I could move again. I stumbled backward, almost falling, then turned and ran toward the flashlight. Chase was standing at the edge of the clearing, holding his light with both hands. His face was pale, and his eyes were wide in a way I had never seen before. He looked scared, not annoyed, not confused, scared. I reached him and nearly crashed into him. For a second, neither of us said anything. Then I looked back toward the clearing. The thing was gone. There was no sound of it running away, no rustle in the bushes, no snapping branches. It was just gone like it had never been there at all. At that exact moment, my flashlight flickered back to life in my hand. The weak yellow beam shone down on the leaves at my feet. I stared at it, shaking. Chase grabbed my arm hard enough to hurt. When I looked at him, he pulled me closer and spoke in a low voice. "Don't talk about this to anyone," he said. "Do you understand me?" I expected him to laugh or say he was joking or tell me I had imagined it, but he didn't. He looked dead serious. I had 1,000 questions, but I was too scared to ask any of them. My throat felt tight and my whole body was trembling. All I managed to say was, yeah. He held my stare for another second, then let go of my arm. "Good," he said. We started walking back. Neither of us spoke for most of the way. Chase kept his flashlight pointed ahead, but every few seconds he glanced into the trees around us. I noticed that he didn't look lost at all. He seemed to know exactly where we were, even though I had run deep into the woods and had no idea how to get back. That made me feel worse. When we finally got closer to the house, Jack came running toward us. "Oh, you found him," he said, smiling like nothing strange had happened. Chase's face changed quickly. He forced his voice to sound normal, or at least lighter than it had been in the clearing. "Yeah?" he said. "Yeah, I found him." Jack didn't seem to notice anything wrong. He joked that I had picked a good hiding spot and complained that he had been looking everywhere. I tried to laugh along, but I couldn't stop looking at him. His voice sounded normal now. Completely normal. I wanted to ask if he had called for help. I wanted to ask if he had gone deeper into the woods at any point. But Chase's warning kept repeating in my head. "Don't talk about this to anyone." So I stayed quiet. Later that night, we went back inside. Jack's parents were already asleep, and Chase disappeared upstairs without saying much. Jack and I sat in the living room reading comic books under the soft light of a lamp. I tried to focus on the pages, but the words and pictures kept blurring together. Every little sound from outside made me flinch. That was when I noticed something on the mantel above the fireplace. It was a small figurine of a deer. At first, there was nothing special about it, just a little decorative deer standing between some family photos and a candle. But then, I saw the eyes. Bright yellow, the same kind of yellow I had seen in the clearing. My stomach turned. I looked at Jack, but he was still reading, completely unaware. I tried to tell myself it was just a coincidence. Lots of animal decorations have painted eyes. Yellow wasn't that unusual. But the longer I stared at it, the more certain I became that those eyes were staring back. I abruptly stood up and told Jack I needed to use the bathroom. He barely looked up from his comic. I walked down the hallway, trying to keep calm. I just needed a minute alone. I needed to splash water on my face and convince myself I was overreacting. But halfway down the hall, something made me stop. There was a painting hanging on the wall. I had probably passed it earlier in the day without noticing, but now it felt impossible not to see. It looked old, almost like something from a museum. The style reminded me of those old Renaissance paintings, with soft colors and careful shadows. In the painting, a man sat beside a pond under a dark tree. His face was calm, almost peaceful, but his eyes were glowing yellow. I stood there staring at it, unable to breathe. The eyes were the same, not similar. The same, something about that painting made the whole house feel different. Until then, I had thought whatever I saw was out in the woods, something separate from Jack's home, something hidden among the trees. But the deer figurine in that painting made me realize it wasn't just in the woods. It was in the house, too, or at least the family knew about it. I went into the bathroom and locked the door. I didn't even turn on the light at first. I just stood there in the dark, shaking. I wanted to call my parents and beg them to pick me up, but I knew I wouldn't be able to explain why. I also didn't want Jack to think I was being weird or scared. So I stayed. Somehow I made it through the rest of the night. I don't remember sleeping much. I remember lying on the floor in Jack's room, staring at the window and listening to the woods outside. Every now and then, I thought I heard something move out there. Once, I thought I heard Jack's voice whispering my name from somewhere beyond the glass, even though Jack was asleep in his bed. When morning finally came, I acted normal until my parents picked me up. I never went back to Jack's house after that. At first, I made excuses. I said I was busy. I said I didn't feel well. I invited him to my house instead, or suggested we hang out somewhere else. After a while, we just started drifting apart. That happens with childhood friendships sometimes, and nobody questions it too much. But I knew the real reason. I was afraid of his house. I was afraid of those woods. And more than anything, I was afraid of what Chase knew. Because Chase did know something. I'm sure of it. He wasn't confused when he found me in that clearing. He wasn't asking what happened. He wasn't shocked in the way someone would be if they had just seen something impossible for the first time. He was scared, yes, but it felt like a familiar fear. Like he had been afraid of that thing before. He told me not to talk about it because he understood something I didn't. Jack never seemed to know. Or if he did, he hid it well. He acted normal that night, normal in the years after. And even now, when we occasionally message each other, he seems like a regular guy with regular memories of growing up. But I think Chase carried something. A secret. A warning. Maybe that family had been dealing with whatever lived in those woods for years. Maybe the deer figurine and the painting were signs of some belief, some old story or some family connection to it. Maybe they were protections, maybe they were offerings. I don't know. For years, I tried not to think about it. I told myself I was a scared kid in the dark. I told myself the voice was an animal. I told myself the glowing eyes were moonlight reflecting off something. I told myself Chase was just trying to stop me from embarrassing myself by making up a story. But none of those explanations ever felt right, because I remember the way my body moved against my will. I remember those long fingers reaching for me. I remember the voice that sounded like Jack, but empty. and I remembered Chase's face when he told me to stay quiet. Recently, I've started wondering if I should reach out to Jack again, not casually this time. Not just to ask how life is going or joke about old memories. I want to ask him directly about the woods behind his house. I want to ask about Chase. I want to ask about the deer with yellow eyes and the painting in the hallway. Part of me knows that is a terrible idea, but another part of me has been thinking about that night for years, and the older I get, the more curious I become. Maybe Jack has answers. Maybe Chase does. Or maybe some things are better left in the dark, hidden deep in the trees where they first found you. Story 5. It was 11 p.m. when I started driving toward Appalachia. I had rented a small cabin through Airbnb somewhere deep in West Virginia, far enough from the cities that the listing had called it peaceful, private, and perfect for anyone who wanted to get away from everything. At the time, that sounded exactly like what I needed. I lived in D.C., and for months my life had felt like noise piled on top of more noise. Work, traffic, emails, calls, bills, people, deadlines, arguments I didn't care about, and pressure that never really stopped. I told myself a week in the mountains would help clear my head. No meetings, no city lights, no sirens outside my window at night. Just quiet woods, a small cabin, and enough space to breathe. At least, that was the plan. The drive started normally enough. The highway was empty in that late-night way where everything feels unreal, like the world has been paused for everyone except you. I had coffee in the cup holder, a playlist running quietly, and my GPS mounted on the dashboard. For the first couple of hours, I felt better than I had in weeks. The further I got from the city, the more relaxed I became. Then the roads changed. The wide highway slowly turned into smaller roads. Then those smaller roads became narrow, winding back roads that curved through thick forest. The trees pressed in from both sides, tall and black against the night sky. My headlights barely cut through the darkness. Instead of lighting the road clearly, they seemed to create long, twisted shadows that stretched across the gravel like fingers reaching for the car. The GPS began to act strangely about 20 minutes after I left the last gas station behind. At first, the arrow froze on the screen. Then the map jumped, spun, and reset itself. The voice gave me an instruction that made no sense, telling me to turn onto a road that didn't exist. I slowed down and glanced at the screen, thinking maybe the signal was weak because of the mountains. Then the screen flickered hard, went black, came back for half a second, and died completely. I tapped it. Nothing. The phone itself was still on, but the GPS app wouldn't respond. The signal bars were gone. No service, no map, no route. Just me, my car, and a dark road that seemed to be getting narrower with every mile. I told myself not to panic. The cabin address had looked simple enough when I checked earlier. I remembered some of the turns. I could drive slowly, look for signs, and figure it out. People had lived in these mountains long before GPS existed. I would be fine. That was when I saw the person on the side of the road. They appeared so suddenly in my headlights that I almost slammed the brakes. A figure stood on the shoulder, half buried in the tall grass near the tree line. They were wearing a faded yellow raincoat. The coat looked old and dirty, stained in dark patches and peeling in places, even though it wasn't raining and the night was dry. The hood was up, hiding most of their head. They didn't look at me. They were bent forward in a strange position, their back hunched at an angle that made my stomach tighten. It looked like their spine had been broken and forced back into the wrong shape. Their arms hung low, too low, as if they were searching for something in the weeds beside the road. I slowed down without meaning to. For a second, I thought maybe they needed help. Maybe they had been in an accident. Maybe their car had gone off the road somewhere nearby. But something deep inside me reacted before my mind could make sense of anything. It was a cold old instinct, the kind that lives under logic. Every part of me screamed to keep driving. So I did. I pressed the gas and passed them without stopping. As I drove by, I looked in the side mirror. The figure had not moved, not even a little. A mile later, I reached a crossroads. That was impossible. There had been no crossroads on the map, I was sure of it. The road I was on should have continued for several more miles before the next turn. But there it was in front of me, 4 gravel roads stretching out in different directions under the black trees. There were no signs, no lights, no houses, nothing to tell me where to go. I stopped the car in the middle of the road and stared through the windshield. The forest was silent, too silent. I was about to grab my phone again when a bright light appeared in my rearview mirror. At first, I thought it was a motorcycle. Then I thought maybe it was a car with one broken headlight. But the light was too bright and too centered. It floated in the darkness behind me, far down the road, then began moving closer. Fast, really fast. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. The light started flashing. Not like high beams, not like someone warning me to move over. It flashed in a strange pattern, quick and uneven, almost like a heartbeat in distress. Bright, dark, bright, dark, bright, bright, dark. It felt like a message, or a warning. Then it surged closer. I didn't wait anymore. I slammed my foot down and chose the road straight ahead. Gravel flew behind me as the car shot forward. The road twisted sharply through the trees, and I struggled to keep control. The light stayed behind me, gaining speed with a smoothness that made no sense on that broken road. The gravel beneath my tires felt wrong, loose, shifting, almost alive. Then something hit the back of my car. The crash was violent and metallic, loud enough to shake my whole body. My seatbelt locked across my chest. The car spun sideways, tires sliding over gravel. For a second, all I saw were trees rushing toward me. I twisted the wheel hard and barely managed to stop before hitting one. I sat there gasping, both hands frozen on the wheel. That had not been an accident. Whatever was behind me had rammed my car on purpose. I looked in the rearview mirror. The light was gone. The road behind me was completely dark. No engine sound, no tires, no footsteps, nothing. Just silence, thick and suffocating. I don't know why I got out of the car. I shouldn't have. Every horror movie in the world had taught me better than that. But my brain was still trying to understand this like it was a normal situation. Maybe there was damage. Maybe the rear bumper was hanging off. Maybe I needed to know if the car could still drive. I opened the door and stepped out slowly. The cold air hit me immediately. I walked to the back of the car, phone in one hand, keys in the other, my pulse pounding so loudly that I could barely hear anything else. The trunk was dented badly, but that wasn't what made me stop. There was a cell phone resting perfectly in the center of the trunk. It was my phone, or it looked exactly like my phone. The screen glowed with a pale blue light. An incoming call filled the display. The caller ID was my own number. I stared at it, unable to breathe. Then, from the darkness behind me, a wet, gravelly whisper crawled into my ear. "You forgot your door was open." I spun around, but there was no one there. I ran back to the driver's seat and threw myself inside. I didn't even close the door properly before slamming the car into drive and speeding away. Branches scraped both sides of the car as I tore down the road. I didn't care where I was going anymore. I just needed distance between me and whatever had whispered to me. Then I looked in the rearview mirror. My blood turned cold. In the back seat, where nothing had been moments earlier, sat the yellow raincoat. It was soaked. Water dripped from the sleeves onto the floor mats. The smell filled the car immediately, thick and rotten like stagnant pond water mixed with old earth. I nearly lost control again, but I forced myself to keep driving. I didn't touch the coat. I didn't turn around. I just stared at the road and tried not to scream. Eventually, after what felt like hours, the cabin appeared at the end of a long dirt driveway. It was an old cedar building tucked between the trees. No porch light, no welcome sign. No neighbor lights in the distance, just dark windows, slanted roof, and the woods pressing in from every side. I parked badly, grabbed my bag, and ran inside. The first thing I did was lock the door. I locked each one, pulled every curtain shut, and dragged a chair in front of the front door. Only after that did I go back to the car and pull the yellow raincoat from the back seat using 2 fingers, like it was something dead. It was heavier than it should have been and left a trail of dark water behind it. I threw it as far as I could into the woods. I tried calling the police after that. No service. Of course there was no service. I stood in the living room with my phone raised in the air like an idiot, walking from corner to corner, hoping one bar would appear. Nothing. The cabin had Wi-Fi listed in the rental details, but when I checked the router, it was dead. No lights, no connection. I sat on the couch and tried to calm down. The inside of the cabin looked old but clean. A stone fireplace took up one wall. A narrow staircase led to the second floor. The furniture was mismatched, probably bought from yard sales over the years. The place smelled like cedar, dust, and something faintly damp underneath. There were old family photos hanging on the walls. I didn't notice anything strange about them at first. They looked like the kind of pictures you expect in an old cabin. A family standing by a lake, children on a porch, a woman in a long coat smiling beside a truck. Then I looked closer. Every face had been scratched out. Not ripped, not faded. Scratched. Something sharp had been dragged over each face again and again until the eyes, mouths, and noses were completely destroyed. Even the faces of the children had been removed with careful violence. I backed away from the wall. That was when I heard the scratching. It came from beneath the floorboards. At first, I thought it was rats. Old cabins get animals. That would have been normal. But the sound wasn't random. It had rhythm. Slow, sharp, steady. Scratch, scratch. Like someone underneath the floor was trying to write a message into the wood. I went to the kitchen to find something I could use as a weapon. My hands were shaking so badly that I almost dropped the first knife I grabbed. It was a large kitchen knife with a wooden handle. Holding it made me feel only slightly less helpless. Then I saw the sticky note on the fridge. It was pale yellow, stuck neatly in the center of the door. The message was written in my handwriting. Do not look at the mirror in the hallway. I stared at it for a long time. My handwriting, not similar. Mine, same slant, same uneven spacing. Same way I wrote the lowercase k. I had never been in that cabin before. I had never written that note. But there it was. The scratching under the floor stopped. The silence after it felt worse. I turned slowly toward the hallway. The mirror was hanging on the wall between the kitchen and the stairs. It was tall, narrow, and framed in dark wood. The glass looked old, slightly cloudy around the edges. I told myself not to look. I really tried. I took one step toward the living room with my eyes on the floor, then another. But my body betrayed me. Curiosity rose through the fear, stronger than reason. Some part of me needed to know. Some part of me thought maybe if I looked, I could understand what was happening. So I looked. The mirror showed the hallway behind me. But I wasn't in it. The space where my reflection should have been was empty. Instead, there was a tall man standing exactly where I stood. He wore a disgusting leather mask stretched tightly over his face. It was dark, stained, and uneven, with holes cut for the eyes and mouth. His body was thin and stiff. His head leaned slightly to one side, like he was listening to something inside the walls. I spun around. The hallway behind me was empty. I looked back at the mirror. The man was still there. This time, he leaned closer toward the empty space where my reflection should have been. The cabin lights went out. Darkness swallowed everything. Not normal darkness, not the kind your eyes adjust to after a few seconds. This darkness felt total, heavy, and alive. It pressed against my face. It filled my mouth and nose. For a moment, I had the insane feeling that I wasn't inside a cabin anymore. I wasn't even on Earth. Then something cold touched the back of my neck. A voice whispered right beside my ear, "You look better when you're afraid." I ran. I crashed into the wall, stumbled through the darkness, and found the front door by memory. My hands slapped against the locks, the handle, the deadbolt. I yanked the door. It didn't move. Something rattled on the other side. Chains. Heavy chains had been wrapped around the door from outside. They had not been there minutes earlier. I pulled until my fingers hurt, but the door wouldn't open. Behind me, somewhere in the dark cabin, wood creaked. I ran upstairs. I don't remember thinking. I just moved at the top of the stairs. There was only one open room. I ducked inside, dropped to the floor, and crawled under the bed like a child hiding from a nightmare. For a moment, all I could hear was my breathing. Then the footsteps started. Heavy, slow, coming up the stairs. Step, step, step. They reached the hallway, then stopped outside the room. I held the knife so tightly my hand hurt. Nothing happened for a long time. Then a dark red liquid began seeping under the door. It moved slowly at first, spreading across the floorboards. It smelled metallic and rotten, like old blood left in a hot room. I pressed myself farther under the bed, trying not to gag. Then something rang beside me. I knew he screamed. My phone was under the bed, not the phone in my pocket. The other one, the one I had seen on my trunk. The one with my own number calling it. It rang inches from my face. I grabbed it with shaking hands. The screen was no longer showing a call. It was showing a live video. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then I realized the camera was pointed at me. From under the bed, I was watching myself in real time. My face was pale, my eyes wide, my body curled in terror under the bed frame. The angle was impossible. Whoever held the camera had to be lying right beside me. But when I looked with my own eyes, there was nothing there. Only darkness. I looked back at the screen. Something was beside me in the video. It was crouched low, dressed exactly like me. Same jacket, same jeans, same shoes. But its limbs were wrong, too long and bent at terrible angles. Its face looked like mine at first, until it smiled. The mouth stretched too wide, pulling the skin tight. In one twisted hand, it held a jagged, rusted blade. The phone wasn't showing reality. It was showing the truth. The creature on the screen slowly raised the knife. I watched it stab the blade into my back. At that exact moment, white-hot pain exploded through my real spine. I screamed, but the sound came out muffled, like the air itself refused to carry my voice. My legs went numb. The knife fell from my hand. I clawed my way out from under the bed and dragged myself toward the window. I reached up, pulled the curtain aside, and froze. The forest was gone. Outside the window was the parking lot in D.C. where I had picked up the rental car. Street lights, painted lines, other parked cars, the same pay station near the exit. The cabin wasn't in West Virginia. Maybe it had never been anywhere. It was a trap. A pocket of something made to look like a place. Something designed to let me drive for hours while never really leaving where I started. I grabbed a small lamp from the bedside table and smashed the window. Glass burst outward. I pulled myself up with dead legs and threw my body through the opening. I expected pavement. I fell into darkness. There was no ground, no air, just a lightless drop through a space that smelled of copper, mold, and decay. I landed hard on something cold and flat. Pain shot through me, and for a while I couldn't move. When I finally opened my eyes, I was in a basement, but not a normal basement. It stretched into darkness farther than any basement could. The ceiling disappeared into blackness. Rows and rows of old shelves lined the space, but they weren't filled with tools or boxes. They were filled with cell phones, thousands of them, all vibrating, all ringing. The sound was unbearable, 1,000 different ringtones echoing through the dark. Screens glowed everywhere, lighting the basement in weak blue patches. Each screen showed a different person in a different cabin, hiding in a different place. Some were under beds, some were in closets, some were behind curtains. All of them were terrified. I crawled forward, dragging my useless legs behind me. My own ID card was lying on top of a pile of wallets, licenses, passports, and keys. Thousands of them, maybe more. I picked mine up. There was writing on the back: name, date of birth, address, date of death. My stomach dropped. The date was today, the time was listed as now. A voice boomed from somewhere above me, distorted and cruel. "The show's over. Thanks for participating." A heavy steel door opened high above, spilling a narrow strip of light into the basement. Then someone began descending the stairs. I heard the sound first. A chainsaw. Buzzing. Hungry. The figure came down slowly, step by step, holding the chainsaw in both hands. It wore a mask made of raw, curing skin. My skin. My face. I tried to scream, but my mouth wouldn't open. That was when I felt the sharp bite around my lips. Fishing line. My mouth had been sewn shut with surgical precision while I had been unconscious. Every attempt to open it pulled the stitches tighter. The figure reached the bottom of the stairs and tilted its head. It looked exactly like me now. Not almost. Exactly. Same eyes, same build, same clothes, same face. Only the smile was wrong. My phone buzzed in my hand with 1% battery left. On the screen, I saw the other me walking away from the basement. It climbed the stairs, opened a door, and stepped into the night outside the cabin. Then it clicked my car keys. The headlights flashed. It got into my car and started the engine. It is driving to my house now. It knows my wife's name. It knows how my children laugh. It knows what I sound like when I say I'm sorry. And I'm still here, writing this from a dying phone in a room full of ghosts and ringing screens. If you see me tonight, do not trust my face. If I stand at your door soaked in rain that never fell, wearing a yellow raincoat that smells like old earth and stagnant water, do not open it, no matter how scared I look. Please, do not let me in. Story 6. It all began with a dream, a nightmare, really. I've always had nightmares, and most of the time I can pull myself out of them. I'll wake up, roll over, adjust my pillow, and fall right back asleep like it never happened. I've had the kind where you're falling, the kind where you're being chased, the kind where you realize your teeth are crumbling in your mouth. I'm familiar with that ugly, shaky feeling after. I know how to shake it off. This one didn't shake off. That Saturday started like any other. I was off work, which was one of the only nice things about being in medicine at the time. My schedule was busy, but I usually got my weekends. I was also finishing my bachelor's degree, so my life was mostly work, school, and trying to keep my head above water. I didn't have a boyfriend. I didn't have a big group of friends. It was just a handful of people I kept up with when I could. Honestly, it was a quiet part of my life. Peaceful. Not exciting, but steady. I liked it that way. My friend Olivia had moved into a new condo and asked me to come see it. I'd known her for a couple years. We weren't attached at the hip, but we were close enough that we could go months without hanging out and still slide right back into the same jokes, the same conversations, the same comfort. So I got in my car and drove over. It was about 30 minutes away, mostly back roads. The weather was perfect. That late summer kind of warm where the sun feels heavy but the air still smells clean. I drove with the windows down and the music up, farms stretched out on either side, rows of crops that looked endless, with scattered houses set far apart like they were trying not to bother each other. Every now and then I passed a truck or a kid on a bike or someone sitting on a porch like they'd been sitting there their whole life. I remember thinking for no reason at all that I was lucky. Not in a dramatic way, just lucky to have a day where nothing was demanded from me, no exams, no double shifts, no emergencies, just a friend, a couch, and whatever show we'd end up watching while we talked about nothing important. When I reached her place, it took me a minute to find the right building. Creek Ridge was the kind of neighborhood that looked like it had been built fast. A mix of condos and apartments packed into a large area. Lots of similar-looking doors, similar-looking windows, and sidewalks that all blended together. It wasn't the best part of town. You could tell just by the way the parking lots were cracked and the plants were half dead and the streetlights looked like they hadn't worked in years. I parked as close as I could and spotted Olivia right away. She was sitting outside on what she called her porch, though porch was generous. It was basically a small concrete slab in front of her door, just big enough for 2 chairs if you squeezed them in. There was a plant beside her that looked like it had already given up. She was wearing sunglasses, leaning back like she owned the place. As soon as I stepped out of my car and shut the door, she pushed her shades down just enough to look at me and let out a long, dramatic whistle. "What's a place like you doing in a girl like this?" she said, and she couldn't even finish before she started laughing at her own joke. I rolled my eyes and walked up the sidewalk. "It's good to see you, Livs." She stood up and pulled me into a tight hug, the kind that lasts a second longer than expected. It really had been a while. Finals had eaten my life, and she'd been busy moving, and we'd both been doing that adult thing where you swear you'll make time and then you don't. When she stepped back, she looked me up and down like she was checking to make sure I hadn't changed too much. "I'm so glad you came. Derek's inside feeding the cat. Come in." "You're still with Derek?" I asked, because that surprised me. She hadn't mentioned him in months, and with Olivia that usually meant they'd broken up again. Their relationship was a cycle. She'd gush about him, then hate him, then swear she was done for good, then suddenly he was back in her life like he'd never left. She paused with her hand on the doorknob. "Yeah, it's a long story." She said it in a way that made it clear she didn't want to tell that story right then, and she waved it off as she opened the door. The humidity hit me as soon as I walked inside, like the air conditioning hadn't caught up yet. The condo itself was decent, not huge, but comfortable. Living room connected to a dining space and kitchen. A staircase led up to the second floor. I remembered her saying it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. For her age and budget, it was a good place. Better than my situation at the time, since I was still living at home. As I looked around, Derek came in from the kitchen with Mango in his arms. Mango was Olivia's orange cat, a big fluff ball with too much attitude for her size. She squirmed like she wanted down, probably because she could smell the food Derek had just put out. Derek nodded at me and smiled like we were all normal. "Hey, good to see you, Maddie." "Hey," I said back, and tried to ignore the weird tight feeling in my stomach. It wasn't even Derek's fault. I'd just never fully warmed up to him, and I couldn't tell you why. He wasn't rude. He wasn't obviously terrible. Something about him always felt slightly off to me, like I could never read him right. "You guys all moved in?" I asked, trying to keep things light. "Yeah," Olivia said quickly, like she wanted to change the subject before it landed anywhere serious. "Come sit. I want to show you everything." The rest of that visit was normal. Derek disappeared upstairs at some point to play video games. Olivia and I stretched out on the couch and watched reruns of shows we'd seen 100 times. We laughed at the same jokes. We talked about work, drama, and school stress and random things we'd seen online. Mango jumped on and off the couch, demanding attention only when she felt like it. Nothing about that afternoon felt like the start of anything bad. If you asked me then, I would have said it was one of the easiest days I'd had in weeks. Eventually, it got late and I drove home. By the time I walked into my room, I was exhausted in that drained way you get after socializing too long, even if you had fun. I didn't even scroll my phone much. I just changed, climbed into bed, and closed my eyes. I was asleep almost immediately. That's when the nightmare started. In the dream, I was in a place that felt like a building, but not a normal one. The walls were metal, smooth, and cold-looking, and there were no windows anywhere. The lighting wasn't warm, it wasn't natural. It was the kind of light that makes your skin look gray, like the air itself is sick. It reminded me of a futuristic apartment, but also a prison. Like someone had tried to make it comfortable without understanding what comfort actually is. There were rooms, furniture, a layout that made sense, but it felt wrong. Too clean, too sealed, like nothing could get in, and nothing could get out. The strange part was how normal it felt to be there. In the dream, I wasn't alone. Jack and Amy were there too, friends of mine. And in that dream, it wasn't like we were visiting the place. It felt like we lived there. Like this was our life, like we had been in that metal box for years and had simply accepted it. I remember walking around, touching the walls, trying to get a feel for the space. I don't know what I was looking for. A door? A way out? Something to explain why we were there, but nothing stood out. Until I passed the bathroom, the door was wide open and the bathroom looked almost normal. White tub, toilet, mirror, a standard sink. The kind you'd see in any average apartment, but the moment I saw the sink, my stomach dropped. The faucet was dripping. Just a slow, steady drip, like it had been left slightly on. In real life, that sound is annoying. In the dream, it was terrifying, like the dripping was the only thing in the world that mattered. I stared at it, and I swear I could feel the temperature in the room change. Jack was beside me. Without thinking, I pointed at the sink. The faucet is dripping. Jack's face went pale so fast it was like someone drained him. His whole body went stiff. Then he grabbed my wrist hard enough to hurt and yanked me away from the bathroom like I was about to fall into a pit. "What the hell?" I said. But he didn't answer. He pulled me back into the main area where Amy was, like he needed to get away from the bathroom as quickly as possible. Amy looked up, confused. "What's going on?" Jack's eyes were wide. His voice came out tight and low. "The faucet is dripping. She's here." A cold wave rolled through me so strong it felt physical, like my insides had turned to ice. Amy's face changed too, the confusion snapping into something else. Fear. Recognition. "Who's here?" I asked. But neither of them answered me. Jack pushed me down by my shoulders until I was sitting. He moved fast like he'd done this before. Amy sat in front of me, then Jack sat in front of her, forming a weird line like they were trying to block my view. Jack leaned in. "Cover your eyes. Don't look at her. Don't make a sound, no matter what." I didn't argue. Something in Jack's voice told me not to. My hands flew up and covered my face, pressing my palms into my eyes, until everything went dark. My heart was beating so hard it hurt. I clamped my jaw shut, afraid even my breathing would be too loud. There was a heavy silence, the kind that makes your ears strain for any little sound. I couldn't hear the hum of lights anymore. Couldn't hear any air system. Even the drip from the faucet seemed to stop, or maybe my brain just couldn't process more noise. Then I heard it. A soft, shuffling sound, wet and slow, like bare feet dragging over tile after stepping out of a shower. It came from the direction of the bathroom. It got closer. I could feel Amy's presence in front of me, stiff and shaking like she was trying not to breathe. Jack was behind her. None of us moved. None of us spoke. Then, without warning, I felt a presence to my left. Not like someone walked up, like someone had always been there and I'd only just noticed. The air beside me felt thick, heavy, crowded. It felt like a face inches from mine, staring straight at my hands covering my eyes, waiting for me to peek. Every part of me wanted to look. That awful curiosity, that instinct to confirm what's there. But Jack's words looped in my mind like a warning siren. "Cover your eyes. Don't look at her. Don't make a sound." Something touched my cheek. It was wet, not a splash, not a drip. It was more like a smear, like someone ran something damp along my skin. I felt it slide from near my cheekbone down toward my jaw. My throat tried to make a sound on its own. A whimper rising up, but I swallowed it. I kept my hands pressed to my face so hard my fingers hurt. Then I felt the wetness again, but lower. On my feet. On my toes. It was the same slick, disgusting feeling, like whatever touched me was coating my skin. I could feel the liquid between my toes reducing the friction, making them slide against each other in a way that made my stomach turn. The fear shot through me so hard it ripped me out of sleep. I woke up in my bed, sitting up so fast I almost got dizzy. My hands went to the mattress to hold myself steady as my eyes darted around my room. The dark made everything look unfamiliar. Shadows in corners seemed deeper than they should be. My brain was still half inside the dream, still expecting metal walls, still expecting that sealed feeling. My breathing was too loud. My heart was pounding. I raised a shaking hand to my left cheek. It was wet, not sweaty wet, not a little damp. A clear patch of slick wetness like someone had wiped something across my face. My eyes snapped to the foot of my bed. Under the comforter, I could see the shape of my toes pushing up slightly. Slowly, like I was afraid of what I'd find, I wiggled them. They slid against each other. There was liquid there. In that moment, I threw my comforter back like it was on fire and stumbled out of my room. I didn't even turn on the lights. I didn't want to see what might be there. I just wanted distance, space, anything that wasn't that bed. I went to the couch and curled up there, trying to convince myself my own body was playing tricks on me. That I'd drooled, that I'd sweat, that it was hot, that the nightmare had simply blended into waking life the way nightmares sometimes do when you're stressed. I don't remember exactly when I fell asleep again. I don't remember if I actually slept or just drifted in and out, but I do remember a last image, like the dream refused to let go completely. Her. Tall. Too tall. Lanky in a way that didn't look human. Black hair hanging down to her waist, wet and tangled like it had been dragged through a bathtub. A gray dress with long sleeves that hung off her frame, reaching down toward her bare feet. And just as she turned her head, just enough to look over her shoulder at me, the dream ended again, like something slammed a door. By morning, I tried to be rational. In daylight, it was easier. I was embarrassed at how scared I'd been. I told myself I'd been drooling on my face in my sleep, that the wetness on my toes was sweat because I'd overheated under a thick comforter. I'd had nightmares before. I'd woken up sweaty before. Nothing about this had to mean anything. Still, the dream stuck with me all day in a way my other nightmares didn't. It sat in the back of my mind like a splinter. And by afternoon, I did what I always did when something bothered me too much. I called Olivia. I told myself I just wanted reassurance. I wanted someone else to hear it and say, "That's creepy, but it's just a dream." I wanted to laugh it off with her the way we laughed off everything. So I described it. I started with the metal rooms and the feeling that it was an apartment and a prison at the same time. I told her about Jack and Amy being there, how it felt like we'd lived there forever. I told her about the bathroom. I told her about the dripping faucet. Then I told her about the warning, about covering my eyes, about the presence beside me. I even told her about the wetness, because it was the part that scared me the most. When I finished, she didn't say anything for a moment. In that pause, my skin prickled. Then she asked quietly, "Was she wearing a gray dress?" That question hit me like a punch. My mouth went dry. "Yes," I said, slow and careful. Olivia continued, like she was checking items off a list. "Long black hair? Yeah? And really long fingers." My heart started beating faster. It felt like I'd just stepped into the same dream again, like the walls were closing in. "Yes," I whispered. "How did you know that?" For a second, I thought she was going to tell me I was psychic, or that she'd had the same dream, or that there was some weird horror movie we both watched and forgot about. Instead, she laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not an uncomfortable laugh. A real laugh, like I'd reminded her of something silly. "Oh, that's just Miriam," she said. Her casual tone made something hot flash through me. Anger mixed with fear. My hands started shaking again. "Who the hell is Miriam?" I snapped, louder than I meant to. "Olivia, I'm serious." She sighed like I was being dramatic. I could hear her moving around, doing something in her condo like this was a normal conversation. "I don't exactly know what she is," Olivia said, "but she's followed me around basically my whole life." My stomach dropped. "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Then why am I seeing her?" "I don't know," Olivia admitted, but she sounded more curious than worried. "No one else has ever told me they've seen her, except Derek." In the background, I heard Derek's voice, close enough that he must have leaned into the room. "You talking about Miriam?" "Yeah," Olivia called back. Maddie had a dream about her, and then, like it was a joke, they laughed. Both of them. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My fear wasn't being treated like fear, it was being treated like gossip. "Oh," Derek said, and his tone turned almost playful, like he was teasing. "Did she lick your toes too? I hate when she does that." That was the moment something in me broke. My skin crawled, my scalp prickled, my stomach churned. I started pacing my room, phone pressed to my ear, trying to move the panic out of my body, but it only grew worse. "You're telling me this thing latched onto me somehow?" I demanded. "You're telling me she's here now?" Olivia sounded calm. Too calm. "She's harmless," she said. "I wouldn't worry about it." The slick feeling between my toes. The way Jack's face had gone white in the dream. The warning not to look, not to make a sound. The presence beside me that felt patient and hungry. Derek spoke again, like he was trying to be helpful. "The worst she's done is move things around." I hung up on them. I didn't want to hear their voices. I didn't want to hear them laugh again. I didn't want their calmness to infect my fear and turn it into something I couldn't trust. I sat there in my room, staring at nothing, trying to understand how two people could talk about something like that as if it was a weird house guest that sometimes acted up. That was 5 years ago. Miriam never left. Olivia had told me she would, like it was just a phase, like she drifted from person to person and got bored. But she didn't get bored of me. If anything, it felt like she settled in. My sleep disappeared first. At the beginning, I tried to fight it, tried to force myself into normal nights. But every time I closed my eyes, I felt like I was inviting her closer. I started taking short naps instead. 2 hours here, 2 hours there, usually when I wasn't home. If I could avoid sleeping in my own bed, I did. I'd nap in my car during breaks, on a friend's couch, anywhere that didn't feel like my room. It didn't take long for the lack of sleep to ruin everything. I started drifting at work, blinking too slowly, losing time in the middle of tasks. I'd catch myself standing still, staring at a wall like my brain had shut down for a second. My appetite disappeared. Food felt like cardboard. School stopped feeling important, not because I didn't care, but because my mind couldn't hold information the way it used to. I'd reread paragraphs and realize I had no idea what I'd just read. My memory got worse. My patience got thin. Everything in my life turned into something I endured instead of lived. Then the marks started. Scratches appeared on my body in places I couldn't explain. Sometimes on my arms, sometimes on my legs. Thin lines like nails had dragged lightly over my skin. I told myself I must have done it in my sleep. I must have itched. I must have bumped into something. But the scratches kept showing up, and they didn't feel like accidents. They felt intentional, almost careful, like someone was testing how much they could do without leaving obvious damage. Then came the sounds. At first, it was easy to dismiss. A house makes noise, pipes shift, floors creak. But this wasn't creaking. This was that same wet shuffling sound from the dream. Slow and dragging, like something damp moving across the floor. Sometimes I'd hear it in the hallway outside my bedroom. Sometimes in the living room late at night when everyone else was asleep. Sometimes right outside the bathroom door. I'd sit up in bed, holding my breath, waiting for the sound to stop. It always did. And that was almost worse because it felt like it stopped only because it knew I was listening. Like it liked the attention. Like it wanted me to imagine what was making the noise. My parents never noticed anything. That was another layer of hell. I tried bringing it up once, carefully, like I was just asking if they'd heard weird sounds in the house lately. They shrugged. They laughed a little. They told me I was stressed, that I needed to sleep more, that school was getting to me. I stopped asking after that. When you're terrified and the people around you act like everything is normal, you start to feel crazy. You start to wonder if your brain is broken. You start to isolate because explaining it only makes you feel worse. And then there was the feeling of being watched. It wasn't constant at first. It came in flashes, like someone suddenly turning a light on behind your eyes. I'd be in the kitchen, making dinner, and I'd get that urge to look over my shoulder. I'd be sitting in the living room with the TV on, and I'd feel like there were eyes on the back of my neck, steady and patient. But it was worst at night. At night, when I'd finally decide I had to sleep, when my body couldn't take it anymore, I'd lie there and feel like I wasn't alone in my room. Like if I opened my eyes, I'd see her standing in the corner, tall enough to almost touch the ceiling, hair-dripping gray dress hanging off her frame. I became afraid of my own bedroom, afraid of closing my eyes, afraid of waking up and seeing something I couldn't explain away. I spent years like that, years running on exhaustion and fear, years telling myself I could handle it, that I just had to make it through the next day, the next shift, the next exam, years waiting for it to stop. And then, recently, it did. For a couple of weeks, there was nothing. No shuffling, no new scratches, no heavy feeling in the air, no sense of someone standing just out of sight. The silence felt strange at first, almost suspicious. But after enough days passed, I started to let my guard down. I stopped listening for footsteps that weren't there. I stopped checking corners when I walked into a room. I even slept longer than 2 hours for a few nights in a row. Real sleep. The kind where you wake up and for a few seconds you forget what fear feels like. That relief made me careless. So I'm writing this now because I don't trust the quiet anymore. I don't know what she is. I don't know why she decided I was next. I don't know if Olivia and Derek still see her or if she left them once she had me. I don't know if there are others like her or if Miriam is the only one. All I know is that she won't leave me alone, not completely, not for good. And I think the calm was only a pause, like she was waiting for me to relax. I need someone to understand what's happening. I need someone to tell me there's a reason, a pattern, a way to stop it. Because today when I walked into my bathroom, I heard something I hadn't heard in years. My faucet was leaking. Drip, drip, drip.